You are listening to the Fancy Free podcast where my guests and I share our most embarrassing, funny stories so that we all feel less alone in our imperfections and forge connection through vulnerability and humor. I'm Joanne Jarrett, and I'm your host, and today I have with me Lola. We're not giving a last name because she would like to remain anonymous, but Lola is a pathologist, and for information, this encompasses a wide field that typically includes autopsies, but she specifically looks at slides of samples from live patients like skin biopsies, organ biopsies, etc. Lola, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And fill in the blanks. What else can you tell us about who you are and what you do?
I'm a pathologist, so that's an MD. So some people think about speech pathology, I think, when I say pathology. So we go to medical school. There's a 4-year residency, and then most people end up doing a fellowship, and it's a very broad specialty. So some people go into like blood banking. Some people do only autopsies. So that would be like your forensic pathologist. And most pathologists, I think people don't realize, look at laboratory data, biopsies, and organs. And so if you ever go get something done at the hospital and it gets taken out, somebody actually goes and looks at that. They don't just like throw away your gallbladder. It's the invisible doctor that nobody knows. And if they find something malignant, it's because a pathologist has looked at your slide or your specimen or whatever. So it's kind of this invisible specialty that people don't often know about.
Yes, and that includes physicians. I have always been very curious about the specialty of pathology because I think I chose my specialty incorrectly. It was just too much, all encompassing and so general. And I felt like people could come in and give me a list of 20 things they had concerns about. And it was my obligation to address them all. Not necessarily in one appointment, but at least you have to like triage them. And I loved it while I was practicing. I always say I should have either been a pathologist or a dermatologist, but I'm honestly, didn't know a whole lot about what pathologists do, except for that I have spoken to many when I've had questions about a lab result or a biopsy result. And so, the primary care physicians all physicians are so glad that you guys are doing that because obviously it's super important. But yeah, you're totally behind the scenes. So even other doctors don't really know what your day-to-day life looks like necessarily.
Yeah. Most physicians don't know that I'd quit and be doing a podcast in the middle of the day.
Right. It's like, those slides can wait.
It's true. And that's why I like it. The slides aren't, staring at you like, when are you going to see me? I mean, you want to get things done in a timely manner, but there's a little bit of flexibility. So I do like that. And having a bunch of patients telling me like 20 things that's going on in their lives sounds like a nightmare. So I'm glad there's people that can handle that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And I liked it while I did it and I could do it, but I couldn't do it and be a good mom and a good wife and have the kind of home life that I wanted. And so I just had something I had to give. But while I was doing it, it was very satisfying. And the people connection is what I love. So probably dermatology would have been more at my alley because there's still continuity, still some procedures.
Right.
Not as many life and death things. And I could have a heart attack, walk into the office at 5 p.m. and my husband can have a toothache, walk into his office at 5 p.m. And then who's going to take care of the kids? It wasn't good.
Yeah.
So do you do operating room frozen sections or do you do all stuff that can wait?
Yeah. So there are days where I'll be at the hospital and we'll be very busy and have all kinds of frozen sections.
And that's more of like a right now thing because the patient's under anesthesia, right?
Right. And so that could be anything from like a brain tumor to an ovarian neoplasm. And so you kind of have to know a little bit about everything. So you still have to have quite a breadth of knowledge about what different tumors look like. And, it's impossible to know everything. So we actually have little cameras set up to our microscope and we can call our colleagues and say, hey, can you look at this real quick? And so sometimes we do consult each other. Yeah, it's really cool. It's like the next step in digital pathology.
That's awesome. So you can kind of crowdsource it if you're not exactly sure or you want to know what someone else thinks.
Right.
Interesting. Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for doing what you do. And yeah, maybe in my next life, I will
come back as a pathologist.
Yeah. Too old and lazy to do it in this life, but
go into finance.
Yeah. I'm not even very good with our own bills. So that's a no for me. That's a no for me, dog.
Buy some crypto.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do your rapid fire questions. Have you ever met a celebrity?
Yeah. I walked past Hank Azaria one time in New York City and I was I just kind of thought like, oh, that guy kind of looks like Hank Azaria. And then the people that were walking behind us go, Hank Azaria. And he turned around and smiled and just kept walking. It was like the best. He must have been on his way to like a read or something. I don't know.
Yeah, nice. I always am curious about how celebrities respond. I think that I would probably just quietly observe like you did, because it's like, man, if you have one of those faces that's just known by everybody, can you ever like get anywhere? You know?
I know. Like I always feel bad about like interrupting or whatever. And I guess it kind of depends on like who the celebrity is or what the situation is, you know?
Yeah, because, you know, they signed up for that to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, if they're in a very private like setting or whatever, for instance, oh my God, this is one time we saw, I was at like a pathology meeting or whatever, and it was kind of a smaller group, like 15 people or so, and we were in Chicago, and we had a dinner meeting at Mike Ditka's steakhouse. And Ditka was actually upstairs hanging out with a table of his friends. And of course, we saw him, and I didn't want to bother him. So I kind of like kept walking. But some of the guys in our group were like, oh, Mike Ditka. And they wanted to get a picture and stuff. And this, oh my God, he looked so angry in the picture. And then,
oh no.
Yeah. So we saw him on the way to our like private room, and he did take a picture with, you know, some of the guys, and then he and his group got up and left and went somewhere else. So I don't know what happened, but he looked really pissed.
Yeah, if you don't want to be spotted, I guess you just need to close the door.
I know. Well, yeah, it was sort of a weird situation because he was up in like this open area. So it wasn't like we were walking past his private room. It was like you had to walk through this open area to get to our room. And he would have known, I would think, that there was like a private group coming in. So it's kind of on him.
Yeah, and you know what? Partially the reason why your restaurant is successful is because you're a celebrity, and so that
and
carries
it's the
with
name.
Yeah, it's the thing. It's a whole thing. Alrighty, what TV show are you hooked on, or what's been your favorite binge?
Man, I just binged Peaky Blinders, and that's such a good show. One of my favorites.
Oh my gosh, please tell me a little bit about that.
So it stars Cillian Murphy, who was in like one of the Batman movies from like the early 2000s, maybe. He's the tall, dark, and handsome, has the really bright blue eyes, and he played like the crazy scientist or something. I can't remember what his character was. But anyway, so he's the main character in Peaky Blinders, and it's kind of set post-World War I. It's a group of guys in England, and it's this family, and their background is like Gypsy or Romani people, and they kind of develop a gang, and they have their hand in kind of a little bit of everything. So they're like bootleggers, and they're dealing with gambling and stuff. And so the whole series is about their rise to power and money. And it's just really interesting. And there's a lot of kind of mind games and action. And it almost reminds me of Game of Thrones in terms of like thinking 2 steps ahead. Like, oh, I didn't know he was going to do that. So that's really interesting.
The strategy.
Yeah, but the Peaky Blinders is they wear these like newsboy type caps, and they have razor blades sewn in the top, or I guess the peak. I don't know how technical of a term that is, but they will throw their hats or use their hats to slash, in fights or whatever. So that's where the name comes from. They would slash across the eyes to blind.
Ooh.
And I looked this up. The show isn't all based on historical fact, but there's like a little bit of like a thread of history that's actually true in that. So it's interesting.
Okay, that is definitely not what I was thinking of when you said Peaky Blinders. How interesting. Wow. Well, I'm going to have to check it out for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, what is your strangest family tradition?
Several years ago, my sister caught a turkey toy at a Mardi Gras parade, and it's a turkey that looks like a Thanksgiving turkey. It's like a little stuffed animal, but it sings jingle bells, so we called it Christmas turkey. And we bring him out every year for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And it's kind of annoying, actually. He just sings jingle bells and gobbles. And then the other tradition that I started was we do fried chicken for Thanksgiving instead of turkey, because let's be real, nobody likes turkey.
That sounds fabulous. You can still have all the other side dishes and stuff. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, much better.
It's hard to make fried chicken for a big group. Do you do bone-in fried chicken, or do you do breast strips, or what do you make?
Oh no, I go to Popeyes and I get it the day before and then we reheat it.
Oh, you're so smart.
So we're not really cooking that much.
I don't make it. Don't get me wrong.
I actually love to cook, but for the holiday, it's kind of nice to have a break. I mean, if you work full time, you don't want to like have your day off in the kitchen. Yeah. So I don't know. I actually do love cooking, and I grew up with my grandma making homemade biscuits, and then we would crumble the biscuits in cornbread and make the homemade dressing and all that stuff. But, I kind of, Popeye's fried chicken is fine. Anyway, my husband gets so annoyed with that, but it's fine.
That's funny. Okay, what's the most amazing thing you've ever won? Probably not the Jingle Bell turkey.
Oh, no. Well, and that was my sister, yeah. I got an Apple Watch a few years ago.
What?
It was like one of the welcome parties that we have for our new physicians at our hospital, and I never won anything like in a raffle, but I put like all my tickets in for the Apple Watch, and they actually drew like 3 names before me and nobody claimed it, so I saved my tickets, and because they'd give everybody a day, so it was like 4 days later and they drew my name.
You're like,
so
I'm holding out hope.
Because of course nobody else kept their tickets. I'm like the only idiot that kept my tickets. So anyway, but I got my Apple Watch.
Okay, what I have to say about that is you could have put 1 ticket in each and gotten like 5 things then.
I mean, if I'd gotten lucky, there's no way that would have happened. And then they quit doing the raffles after that. So I think that was the last year they, and it would be like a purse or a cooler with treats or whatever. But anyway, I thought the Apple Watch was the best value.
Real good. Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, what commercial jingle gets stuck in your head?
Oh gosh. This is random, but I got my baby back. The Chili's. Yes. And I don't even know if they play that anymore, but my husband and I we randomly sing it.
It'll live forever in your household, whether they still use it or not.
Yeah. There's always, I feel like every household's got some kind of weird random jingle that they sing.
Yes, I agree that you're right. I can't think of what ours is at the moment, but we do a lot of movie quotes, and most of them are from Tommy Boy. But
oh, funny! That's a good one.
Love it. Okay, well, as you know, the point of this podcast is to share some not so fancy moments, even though some people might think we're fancy based on our titles or just knowing us superficially. We all have them. So, what do you have today for us?
All right. So this is the story of the diarrhea bandit.
Oh, I love it already.
Yeah, it's a catchy moniker. I do feel it's important to share the story, even though I'm sharing it anonymously, because it might help somebody else.
Okay, good.
So when I was 18, it was my freshman year in college. And, you're taking a lot of classes and you have high expectations and everything. So, I'd say I was pretty stressed, with school, trying to keep an A average and everything. And then, you're at a new place, you're meeting new people, and you're involved in new things. So it was a fairly stressful first semester, but I don't think I realized I was stressed. I was just keeping myself so busy. I think that happens maybe even now. I mean, I think I'm better at time management, but I think I sometimes don't realize when I'm getting stressed. I just kind of handle it. And I think that probably is fairly common for a lot of women. We just keep taking things on and we don't realize that it's too much until we have a nervous breakdown. But anyway, so I was at the end of the semester, so it was getting really close to exam time and all that. And sort of towards the beginning of the year, I had met this guy and we had been dating. So we met pretty close to the beginning of school. So this is several months into a relationship. And he lived in a small fraternity house that only had 3 guys in it. So it was kind of an off-campus house. And it's sort of a smaller school anyway. There were only 3 guys that lived there. So it was more like a house with roommates than a true fraternity house. But I lived in the dorm and I had a roommate. And so I would stay at the fraternity house. If we had a party or a get together or something, I would just stay and crash at his place. Well, I guess, all the stress had been building up and I kind of didn't realize what was going on, but I was waking up in the middle of the night and later I ended up getting diagnosed with ulcerative colitis.
Oh, man.
As a former family practice physician, you know what the symptoms are with ulcerative colitis. A lot of times you end up getting woken up in the middle of the night with an urgency to go to the bathroom. And sometimes it's something comes out, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just that feeling of of urgency. But anyway, I basically had explosive diarrhea. It's like the only way to explain it. So this would be at 3 a.m. or whatever. I would quietly get out of bed, go to the bathroom. The bathroom was like a separate bathroom, so it didn't attach directly to anybody's room or anything. It was just like you went out in the hallway. Yeah, I know, right? So I'd have my little episode and then I would try to clean up as well as I could. And this is a frat house still. So, I mean, it wasn't like the cleanest place anyway. Yeah. Wash my hands, go back to bed. So this went on for several weeks, maybe a couple months. I can't remember the exact timeline. I feel like I went home and got my colonoscopy and got diagnosed over Christmas. So maybe this was happening a few weeks before exams even. But anyway, so one time I was hanging out with the fraternity guys and I hear somebody mentioned the diarrhea bandit. And I'm like, what? So I didn't say anything because I'm like kind of internally scared that this has something to do with me. So I find out and I kind of pieced the story together a little bit later. So several years later when I was friends with all these guys and we kind of talked about the story again later. But I guess when if I had my little explosive diarrhea episode, I would clean the top if anything splashed on the top of the seat, but I wasn't lifting the seat up or cleaning inside the bowl. And the pledges for the fraternity were the ones who had to do cleaning in the house. And so I guess the pledges started realizing that there is somebody that is having explosive diarrhea and it's been blowing up the bowl, but they could not figure out who it was. And I didn't realize this till years later, but they had even mentioned this in chapter meetings. This is a fraternity Sunday night chapter meeting. They are having like a probably in other news or what is it? New news, table old discussion. Who's the diarrhea? So they named this person the diarrhea bandit.
Is it written on the agenda?
Is it? Yeah, probably. They probably weren't as organized as that. I don't think they had anything written down, but yeah. So they were discussing in chapter like, all right, who's blowing up the bowl and what's going on? And nobody would admit it. And I think eventually the guy I was dating, and we dated for 3 years. He was a great guy. I think eventually he kind of realized that I was getting up in the middle of the night, using the bathroom, you hear the flush. He probably started putting it all together. And so I think he realized it was me, but he wanted to save me the embarrassment. So he actually finally, after a month of this or whatever, he told the guys like, all right, it's me. I've been having a lot of issues. he took the blame. But the thing, I know, isn't that really, he's that kind of guy. He's really sweet. But, he took the blame, but some of the guys wouldn't believe him. So some of them still claimed that there was an unknown diarrhea bandit. So I'm surprised they didn't force any of the pledges to stay up all night to figure it out, or put in a and that shower was nasty. That's a place I would definitely never take a shower. So anyway, this was years and years, and then it just kind of faded away. And of course, I ended up getting my diagnosis, and I started on medication, and then the explosive diarrhea slowly dissipated. But I didn't realize till years later when I was hanging out with some of my friends that were in that fraternity, I didn't know all these details, and I was just mortified that they discussed this in chapter, and that some people had theories that I was the diarrhea bandit, and some people thought that it was my ex-boyfriend that was the diarrhea bandit. And so, my good friends who know, we still joke about it and about the diarrhea bandit. And it's funny because this morning I had a literal show at my house.
Oh no.
I was supposed to give a lecture, and it was right 7:30 on the dot. My lecture was supposed to start, and we have a 1-year-old. I handed her to my husband, and I was like, why is her pant leg wet. And I turned her around and she has like a brown spot. So she had like shat in her pants, and like, you need two people to clean that kind of thing up. So you got to have one person hold the baby, the other person like wiping it off. So I kind of thought my husband could handle it. And then he starts gagging and I'm like, really? Who made you a surgeon? He's a surgeon. It's like, shouldn't you be able to like handle bad smells? So anyway, we switched.
Bowel,
and I have to
know you handle that in the OR all the time, or hopefully
I know. I guess I probably encounter more bowels with poop in them than he does. But anyway, so I had to clean her up, and then I kind of left her with him. And then my other kid's like, "Mommy, I want a kiss. I want a hug." And I'm like, "Kid, I've got to go do this lecture." So anyway, I just told the poor resident, "Sorry, I had a literal." Show. But
it's
yeah.
still
so anyway,
in a different version.
yes, and I texted my friend from college, and she goes, "Oh, she just takes after you, just a little diarrhea bandit." But anyway, you're not really a bandit if I know it's you. So now she's got to figure out how to be sneaky.
Yeah. It's gonna be years before she figures out how to keep that from you.
Yeah. But anyway, so if you are experiencing any kind of explosive diarrhea, that is a symptom of something and you should talk to your doctor.
Yes. Okay. Very good public service announcement.
Yes.
Well, I have an 18-year-old daughter who's leaving for college in 2 weeks. So this story is like especially... Well, I was going to say poignant, but that doesn't seem like the right word for a diarrhea bandit story, but you know what I mean. I'm like, so I'm thinking of you in terms of like being your mom and going, she's dealing with this. And
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know why I didn't like say something sooner. I think I just thought like, this is just, it'll pass. You don't think about those things when you're 18. You're not like, is this a symptom of something, or do I need to
and then fast forward several years to first year med school and we think everything is something that we have. Like
I know
so many of us are like, do I have lupus? Like,
yes. What is wrong with me? Or you're like, what of the DSM-5 do I have?
Yes. Diagnosing all your loved ones.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm glad that it didn't embarrass you in the moment, that it didn't get to embarrass you until you were older and more mature and could laugh about it. So
yeah.
Oh, so cute. If you like to rip your bra off when you're finally home for the day, you're just like me. But I don't like my boobs to be all akimbo in a million directions, and I don't want to terrorize the UPS man. So I came up with Shelfies, which are super soft, cozy, built-in shelf bra loungewear. Each shelf bra has just enough thickness for nipple coverage, separate cups, which are built in for good separation, and just enough lift for some support. Super comfy. We now have long sleeve styles without pockets, short sleeve styles without pockets. Those are new. And we are developing a plus line. So that will be coming up soon. But if you'd like to check it out, go to shelfieshoppe.com. That's ShelfiesShoppe.com. Not because we're fancy, but because plain shop was taken. If you'd like to get 10% off your order, use the code FANCYFREE. Shipping is free, and I think you'll love them. Do you have a life hack for the listeners?
My husband actually taught me this, but if you end up having any like delays or issues, and this is on any airline, if it's weather, you can't really get anything out of the airlines for it. But if the delay is on their part because of maintenance or staffing issues or whatever, you can always email the airline later. And, you kind of have to detail your story and sound a little whiny, but they almost always give you like a voucher. And we've had a lot of issues with flights lately, and you always get something out of it.
What, email like customer service and just get the ball rolling?
Yeah. For instance, we just went on a trip and there was a huge delay, and it was a trip out of Europe. And so the EU passed that law a few years ago, I guess, that if you have a delay of a certain amount of time, you're entitled to X amount of money. And so ours was like the maximum delay. So United should give us I think it's like $600 back per ticket. So we had 3 tickets. And United sent this email and they were like, we're so sorry about your problems. And here's $200 to say sorry or whatever. So we had to actually email them back and say, no, it should be $600. So, a lot of people probably just accepted the $200 and moved on.
Right. Not knowing what they're entitled to.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes you actually have to email back and kind of argue with them about it. So it takes a little time, but we do it and we always get money back. So sometimes it's like $100 in a voucher. Sometimes it's $200 in a voucher, $300, wow. and you get it per ticket. So, if you've got a family of 4, it really adds up. And I mean, the downside is you have to fly Delta again or whoever it is. But,
but there are only so many choices. So eventually you're going to do it. You're going to be on that airline again anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a great one.
Yeah.
You got to assume you're entitled for more than they're offering and don't feel bad about it because that's all worked into their bottom line.
Yeah. And that's another point. Like always ask for more. And if they offer you less, that's fine. But, and that's with jobs and anything. Always ask for more. Why not?
Absolutely. Whatever. And I think, people who are young, maybe don't have just hearing that, it's like, no, do it. It's okay. You don't have to feel embarrassed or
just see what happens,
just do it and you'll be surprised. You'll be pleasantly
It's like crashing a wedding. Just walk right in, if you get caught.
Hey, you can always back up. You can always back up. What is one surprising thing about you that no one would know just by looking?
Oh, maybe they would know it by looking, I don't know, but I love true crime and murder podcasts.
Yes.
So
okay. I can imagine you would know that by looking at someone. Maybe.
Probably not.
But okay, what's your favorite?
I really love My Favorite Murder. That was kind of the main one that got me into it. And they have a huge fan base. So I know a lot of people are probably familiar with them. And then there's a podcast called Casefile True Crime. And I think a lot of people don't know about that one, but it's this anonymous Australian guy. And he just gets so detailed about the evidence in each case. And he presents the case really well. So that's another one of my favorites. But I mean, I listen to all of them. So
awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out. I just listened to an episode of Crime Junkies driving here. So
oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. I like the heart of that one because the aim is it's like cautionary tales and let's help this be solved. And you know what I mean? So it's like, it's not, you don't just feel like you're a rubbernecker looking, thinking about something.
Yeah. I sort of feel that way about My Favorite Murder as well. That one's kind of a more fun one. But they talk about a lot of the injustices associated with why certain crimes were never solved or why nobody took this seriously. And they learn and grow as people as the podcast progresses. So I appreciate that too.
There's one that I've only listened to one episode, but I think it's going to be interesting. It's called Music City 911. And it's somebody who goes over 911 calls. And I've always said, I think I definitely am not someone who is good with adrenaline. I was not cut out to be an ER doctor. I was not cut out to be a trauma surgeon. I know this about myself. But so I feel especially sorry for these people. And I know some of them have the nature where, like, my husband's really good with adrenaline. It makes him smarter and faster. It just makes me bumble. I got to be able to sit at my desk and think.
Right.
But I've known a few 911 operators in my life. And I've thought, the worst part wouldn't even be the adrenaline. For me, the worst part would be the open end. Like, I need to, like, what happened? I would be constantly digging.
Yes, like Googling.
Yes. Or like,
yes,
I don't know, at least, I don't know. Back when I was practicing medicine, you could at least like, if you admitted somebody to the hospital and you wondered how their case went because you were off the case, you could at least like look at the discharge summary or, figure out something. But I hate that. I do not like stories that don't have an end or a solution.
I feel like if I was a 911 operator, I'd be like wanting to call 911 for that person and be like, oh, wait, that's me.
You need to call 911.
You need some help. You need real help. I'm not going to walk you through this. I like avoid. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's so,
I don't wear a white coat in the hospital anymore because I don't want to be asked for help.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, or on an airplane, speaking of airplanes, I'm like, you know what? I haven't been practicing medicine in 20 years. If I'm your best option, we're screwed. I mean, I will try. I am.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay. So that happened to me once. No. This is probably a whole other story. This is like right after I graduated med school. So I've been a doctor for like 6 or 8 months now. And I'm on this airplane and I'm actually like reading a medical journal or something because I was studying for something. And they came on overhead and they said, if there's a doctor on this flight, please press your button, like the flight attendant button. And so the lady next to me like looks at the book that I'm reading, looks at me, looks at the book. And I like kind of look at her and then I look at the button and I waited because I was like, surely somebody else more qualified. And so nobody rang their thing. And I mean, I waited for like long enough where somebody could have rang their bell. So I was like, all right, please be an autopsy. And I like slowly reached up and pressed my button. And so the flight attendant comes up to me and she goes, okay, this gentleman, and he was like 2 rows behind me. She goes, this gentleman has diabetes. He forgot his insulin needle broke. It like, I don't know how he broke it, but it's kind of that like TB looking needle. And it was just completely broken. So there was no fixing it. And his sugar was high. And he needed to give himself insulin. And I said, what's your sugar? Why did I even ask? I forgot like what high sugar is. And he said like 300 something. And I'm thinking, okay, when do you go into ketoacidosis? I cannot remember. And I was
How
like,
bad
all
is
right.
this gonna get? How long?
So, yeah. I was like, what am I going to have to do here? So the flight attendant goes, we might have a needle that he can use in this first aid kit, but we have to open it in the presence of a doctor, which is so weird to me because what are they going to do with the first aid kit when there's no doctor on the flight? You just can't open it.
It's not.
So
then they need to have a doctor on every flight, just like they have a
I
security
know. So I don't know. I thought that was weird. So I don't know if I misunderstood the rule or whatever. Maybe you can have a flight attendant write to you. But anyway, so she opened the kit in front of me. I looked around. All they had was like a huge like gauge needle. They didn't have anything small.
Like a wide bore IV.
Yeah. Like I could stab him in the heart with some insulin, the rock style or whatever. But I told him, I said, listen, and of course this guy is like drinking cranberry juice. I was like, just don't drink or eat anything else. I was like, just have water until you land, and then kind of check your sugars or whatever. So he ended up doing fine. And they gave me a bottle of wine for my trouble. But the whole time on the flight, I was like, please don't die. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Sweating it and ears perked up to back there. Like,
I know. And I was just like, I am not prepared for this. But I didn't want to like not ring my bell, but anyway.
I know.
I think the lady next to me would have kept it a secret. I could tell she was kind of like, I don't know about this.
Do you want me to out you or not? Oh my gosh.
I know. She seemed cool. Shout out to that lady.
Yeah, nice lady. Nice move. Way to be discreet.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that I heard recently that I think it was I don't know, I'm a member of a bunch of different doctor Facebook groups, which is I think how we hooked up. But I think recently there was a PMG conference, physician mom group conference, and one of the lectures was in-flight emergencies, and it was by an anesthesiologist. And I was like, I need to take that. I need to take that class because you want to help if you can, but man, I'm feeling rusty.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably thought about this scenario before, but I've always thought, what would I do if somebody has to deliver a baby and there's nobody around? Because I never really did.
Well, I could deliver a baby in my sleep.
I tried to only do the C-sections because I liked operating, but I didn't like catching the babies and stuff. I mean, it'd probably be fine, but I'd be like scarred. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be. You'd be so scared, and it's not a fast process sometimes. So it's like prolonged fear. Well, I delivered as many babies as I could in medical school and residency because I loved it, but I knew that I didn't want the lifestyle, so I didn't end up going into OB. But I absolutely loved it, and yes, but there are things like that. It wouldn't be a delivery for me. It would be, something like a seizure or choking or something that would be really scary for me. But I don't know. It's world.
There's just a lot of things that can go wrong.
So many things can go wrong. And people do not, here's a whole nother side rant. We won't get into it for very much, but people have no idea. If people had an idea what could go wrong in certain, fragile phases of life, for instance, pregnancy, I think they'd be a lot more careful. But I don't know. It's just me.
No one would leave the house. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That would be terrible. Never mind.
I started getting like that when I was on my medical examiner's rotation. Like you just start seeing the way that all these people die, and you're like, oh, wow. You know what really what I learned is that at a death scene, whether it's a murder or a suspicious death or just a natural death, if you die in your home or wherever, they take photos of the area where you've died just in case it comes up in a question later. So if you die in your house, they take pictures of your fridge, your trash, your living area. So I started keeping my apartment real clean after that rotation. I was like, if I die, I can't have this place a mess.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's funny. That's similar.
Something you don't think about.
If I die, don't let my mother clean out my closet before you go get X, Y, and Z out of there.
Well, and they take pictures of the body, obviously. So if there's people who die in like autoerotic situations, we had several of those. Man. We had to go to all these medical examiner lectures, and they show you, pictures of all these different modes of death, because you have to be able to identify that for your boards. That's part of our education. And I can't tell you how many of those pictures we've seen, but just I don't know.
Oh, there's a lot of ways to die. Yeah, a lot of ways. Yeah.
So anyway, I started driving a little bit slower, and
realizing this life is more fragile than I think, for sure.
Yeah, it's sad, and that's kind of a depressing field. I didn't think it would bother me, but it is to think about it every day or have to do that every day. It is.
My 17-year-old thinks she wants to go into forensics, and she's a very sensitive person. So I'm like, oh, honey, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just be like running the gel electrophoresis in the lab.
Yeah, like I think the lab is kind of cool, more like a CSI type situation. But just going to the death scenes isn't as glamorous as you'd think it would be. No,
it's upsetting and dangerous, and not nearly as dangerous as TV would want us to think, but dangerous nonetheless.
Right. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, this is the point at which I usually say, tell the listeners where they can find you, but nobody can find you, and that is okay. But oh my gosh, thank you so much.
You can find me at the gastroenterology office. Actually, I just got my colonoscopy, so we're good.
Yeah, you're good for a while. You don't have to go to that place. Well, my husband and I'm going to turn 50 next month, and my husband is 50, and we're woefully behind. We should have already had our screening colonoscopies. So that's going to happen soon. Oh,
on the bright side, it's a nice nap. So
yeah, for sure. And it doesn't. Now they use medicine that you don't really have a hangover from, because I don't like the idea of wasting a whole day. But like when I had my EGD done, All right. Well, Lola, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for being on the Fancy Free podcast.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fancy Free podcast. We will see you next time. And remember, no one is as fancy as they look.